Imagine discovering your spouse's infidelity under the most harrowing circumstances, on the very day she was admitted to the hospital. This was my reality. Years have passed since that devastating revelation, yet my ex-wife still struggles to come to terms with my engagement to my new fiancé. If there were an award for the most agonizing way to uncover a partner's betrayal, I believe I would not only win, but also secure a place in its Hall of Fame. Like countless others who share their stories in this community, I found myself thrust into a situation no one ever desires to be part of. The memory of my ex-sister-in-law's voice is etched in my mind. She repeatedly apologized over the phone. I'm sorry," while I was driving home from a demanding week-long business trip. Her frantic apologies left me bewildered, unsure of what she was referring to. It wasn't until I managed to soothe her anxiety that she revealed my wife had been hospitalized, urging me to return home immediately. My thoughts raced as I desperately sought more information, all while struggling to maintain control of the car as I sped down the highway. The only detail she provided was that my wife had been assaulted before abruptly ending the call and becoming unreachable when I tried to contact her again. To provide some context, my ex and I met in our mid-20s through a mutual friend at a casual barbecue gathering. From the outset, she seemed almost too perfect to be true. Her striking beauty was complemented by a gentle, shy, and introverted nature. Our courtship was gradual, taking time to develop into an official relationship, but once we did, I was absolutely thrilled. However, our initial attempts at intimacy took an unexpected turn when she suddenly broke into tears. In hindsight, this should have been a red flag. I panicked, convinced that I had done something wrong, but she apologized the next day, explaining that she was triggered by past trauma. It emerged that 2 years prior to our meeting, she had been in a tumultuous and abusive relationship, emotionally, physically, and mentally abusive. Her former partner would demean her during intimate moments, only to apologize afterward. These flashbacks were a lingering shadow over our relationship, but she assured me it wasn't related to me. We decided to take things slowly, with her continuing therapy to heal. It was a challenging period, but my love for her gave me hope that overcoming these obstacles would ultimately strengthen our bond. For a time, it seemed we were on the right path. A year later, our relationship had flourished to the point of engagement. We took our first steps into deeper intimacy during this phase, and I was fortunate enough to purchase a home for us, thanks to an inheritance from my late uncle. Life was on an upward trajectory. I suggested planting a peach tree in our new yard, a symbolic gesture representing new beginnings, and she wholeheartedly agreed. Our marriage followed shortly after, and, to be honest, it was an incredible time. Naturally, we experienced the typical ups and downs that come with any marriage, but I felt we were particularly fortunate because she always made it a priority never to go to bed angry. She had a gentle way of pointing out if I had done something to upset her, fostering open communication between us. However, life has its unpredictable turns. I received a promotion at work, which came with a higher salary, but also meant more frequent travel for conferences and business meetings. I began to notice changes in her demeanor. She seemed increasingly downcast and less interested in intimacy. She kept her phone perpetually close and stopped addressing issues that previously would have been discussed openly. When I attempted to talk to her about these changes, she reassured me that she was fine and that it was just a phase she was going through. Trusting her words, I chose to let it go, observing that she sometimes stayed overnight at her sister's house, claiming she needed some quality time with her sibling. The pivotal moment came on a day she was supposed to be spending the night with her sister again. I received a distressing phone call, and I remember rushing to the hospital, barely able to catch my breath. There, the most understanding and patient police officer sat me down to explain the situation. He revealed that he was a friend of my sister and had responded to a domestic disturbance call. Upon arriving, he found a couple in the midst of a violent fight. Her supposed boyfriend was aggressively assaulting her, punching her while she struggled and screamed in pain. This didn't make sense to me for 2 reasons. Firstly, she was my wife, and secondly, everyone who knew her knew she would never act in such a manner. The officer gave me a knowing look, placed a comforting hand on my shoulder, and calmly informed me that the woman being assaulted was, in fact, my wife. If not for the gravity of the situation, I might have dismissed his words as a cruel joke, but his sincerity made me believe him. I was then led by a nurse to see my wife, and the sight that greeted me remains indescribable to this day. I stood there in stunned silence for what felt like an eternity. A doctor entered and began detailing her injuries: a slightly fractured jaw, her left eye swollen shut with extensive bruising across half her face, and 3 broken ribs. Then, he delivered another shocking piece of news: she was pregnant. I was overwhelmed, struggling to comprehend how all of this had unfolded. It was then that I noticed her sister. Initially, she tried to avoid me, but encouraged by the police officer, she eventually opened up about what had transpired. The truth was that my wife's ex-boyfriend had reached out to her 5 months prior, engaging in a so-called redemption pyramid step, a method he used to apologize to those he had wronged in hopes of clearing his karma. To an outsider, it might seem like I was losing my sanity, but they began communicating more frequently. He persuaded her to meet for coffee, presenting himself as a reformed man. Old emotions resurfaced, and their interactions gradually turned into an emotional affair. Seeking advice, my wife confided in her sister, who suggested she take things slowly and process her feelings, which eventually led to a physical affair 3 months later. Her sister even encouraged her to make peace with her ex in whatever way felt right, and offered to cover for her occasionally. My wife was in tears, apologizing repeatedly and explaining that she was unaware of the abuse she had endured, as she had only shared this with me and her therapist. I was left numb, unable to process her actions, feeling utterly dumbfounded by her betrayal. When she finally regained consciousness, she burst into tears upon seeing me. The following months were a blur of emotional turmoil. We attended individual counseling for her and joint marriage counseling at the strong insistence of her family. In therapy, she was remarkably open about how the affair happened and expressed deep remorse for the pain she caused me. She confessed that there were moments when she considered driving into a river to escape the trauma of smelling her ex's scent, fearing it would corrupt our relationship. This revelation made sense, as she admitted she had tried to end the affair but felt too weak to do so until she discovered her pregnancy. Realizing that any further contact with her ex was toxic for both her and the unborn child, she attempted to end things definitively. However, when he reacted violently, she was left a shell of her former self, developing a phobia of men other than me. There were times she couldn't even use the bathroom at night unless I held her hand. Shortly after our son was born, a paternity test confirmed he was mine. Paradoxically, the more time I spent with her, the more I realized I didn't hate my wife. I actually despised her. The woman I had married seemed like a mere shadow, tainted by the remnants of her ex's influence. Fearing I would repeat the cycle of abuse, I made the difficult decision to leave. She pleaded with me not to go, even making an outrageous offer to give me a hall pass, and threatening to slap her if I wanted to. Realizing I had to protect myself, I proceeded with the divorce. She handled the separation with unexpected generosity, moving back to her parents' home and agreeing to a well-structured co-parenting plan as mandated by the courts. 3 years later, fate introduced me to my now fiancé in an unexpected way. While visiting a bookstore with a friend, we were engrossed in a discussion about Egyptian mythology. Out of the blue, a stunning woman approached me to correct my pronunciation of Egyptian gods and cities. Her deep knowledge and the fact that she was Egyptian herself left a lasting impression. We exchanged numbers, and our connection quickly blossomed into a romantic relationship. When I decided to propose, I chose the perfect setting, the peach tree we had planted years ago. As I knelt on one knee, she surprised me by retreating into the house and returning with her own ring, having planned to propose to me instead. It turned out she was deeply in love and didn't want to share me with anyone else. My son, with his pure and innocent nature, witnessed the proposal and shared the moment with his mother. That very night, my ex showed up in the rain, demanding that I propose in front of our tree and insisting that our story wasn't over. Exhausted by the ordeal, I found myself unable to confront her directly because she is the mother of my child. Instead, she continued to harass both me and my fiancé, leaving me desperate for a solution to help her move on without escalating to legal measures like a restraining order. Apologies for the lengthy account, but I'm truly at my wit's end. I wanted to pose a question to the insightful women of Reddit. something that still troubles me is why she found time for her ex, someone who had caused her so much pain, only to end up suffering a worse fate herself. Is it common for individuals who have been abused to seek attention from their abusers, even if they harbor hatred towards them? This is something my ex mentioned once. I also forgot to include this in my original post. When my fiancée presented me with the ring she intended to use for her proposal, she had an engraving on the inside band that read, "To my Pharaoh, damn I love this woman." Upon discovering my wife's affair on the day she was hospitalized, I never imagined that years later she would react so negatively to my engagement. I am incredibly grateful for all the support and kind words from everyone regarding me, my fiancé, and my ex. It's disheartening to realize that my ex's tumultuous relationship and her abusive past are not as rare as I thought. Reading about similar experiences shared by others almost made me lose hope, but I'm encouraged to see that many have managed to recover and move forward. Since my initial post, significant developments have occurred. Firstly, a heartfelt thank you to user Mama20245 for your straightforward yet brilliant advice. It has saved us a great deal of trouble. Now, regarding recent events, my son's birthday was approaching, and he expressed a desire to have a camp night to celebrate. To elaborate, he absolutely adores the outdoors. Camping, hiking, and even playing in rivers are his favorite activities. However, due to the ongoing tensions, we couldn't visit our usual spots, so I offered our backyard as the venue. Another request he made was for my ex to join us for the night. He wanted to recreate a scene from one of his favorite kid adventure shows, where both parents sit on either side of him, roasting marshmallows by the campfire. I had no intention of denying his birthday wishes, but simultaneously, I couldn't allow my ex to share the same tent as me and my fiancé. It would be too disrespectful to her. Although my fiancé expressed understanding, it was evident she was uncomfortable with the idea. My ex seized this opportunity, repeatedly expressing how much she looked forward to spending the night with her two men, and even went as far as purchasing camping gear that would rival Bear Grylls. Her behavior was clearly aimed at provoking my fiancé, and she lacked any sense of grace. I had to confront her a couple of times, but she only relented when I threatened to involve her sister. Since our divorce, my ex has harbored a deep-seated resentment towards her sister. She acknowledges her part in the breakdown of our marriage, but shifts the blame to her sister for encouraging the affair and preventing her from making choices that might have preserved our relationship. More importantly, according to her, our marital issues had deteriorated to such an extent that she refused to allow her sister to spend any significant time with our son, leading to severe depression. Despite her efforts over the years to reconcile with her sister, the relationship only seems to be deteriorating further. A fellow Redditor, Mama20245, offered a simple yet effective solution: purchase a multi-room tent to include my fiancé in the celebration. I wasted no time and immediately bought one. Naturally, my ex was displeased but accepted having to stay under the same roof as me during the birthday festivities. My son was ecstatic, running around the yard pretending to be a great explorer discovering new lands. As evening fell, I built the campfire while my ex took charge of providing the marshmallows. Our son eagerly sat between us, roasting his marshmallow alongside both of us. To my surprise, after we finished taking pictures and making s'mores, he handed my fiancé a stick and a marshmallow, sitting next to her to create his second s'more. It was astonishing to witness such a pure and heartwarming moment emerge from the chaotic relationship between me and my ex. Later, my ex approached me for a conversation, which I agreed to. We moved into the kitchen, where she apologized for her behavior on the day I proposed, though she didn't apologize for her actions during the affair. She confessed that she still considered me her husband mentally, making the idea of me giving my heart to another person terrifying for her. She expressed that she never wanted to cause me pain, and would do anything to undo her mistakes if she could. She also shared that she felt a sense of happiness when the paternity test confirmed I was the father, believing it marked a new beginning for us and symbolized our love. I appreciated her courage in sharing these feelings, but gently informed her that I was content with my life and my fiancé. I wished her well, and hoped she would find someone to make her happy too. She reiterated that she meant what she had said during our divorce, and declared she would wait for me. I left the kitchen feeling drained, realizing that none of my reassurances reached her. We decided to end the evening, with my fiancé and I sleeping in one section of the tent and my ex with my son in another. Overall, it was a joyous birthday for my son, but a challenging night for me. That's where things stand at the moment. I promise to provide updates if any significant events occur.